Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
All right, gang, what's going on? Hope you had a great weekend. Welcome to a packed Monday edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Huss and Reem with you. We're here. We may have to talk a few people off the ledge after yesterday's loss to the Buffalo Sabres, but we'll do our best to do that. A recap of what did and what didn't happen for the Winnipeg Jets yesterday. A look ahead to a huge tilt tomorrow between the top two teams in the National Hockey League, the Winnipeg Jets and the Washington Capitals. And if that one could be anything like the thriller we saw about a month and a half ago in D.C. on a Saturday night, we'll be in for a real treat tomorrow. I believe the game has been sold out for a while. Doesn't look like Ovi's going to really be in the, stranger things have happened, but without a massive, massive explosion tomorrow, that record is not going to be in jeopardy. And of course, the Jets will have Connor Hellebuck back in net tomorrow night, and he'll have something to say about that. Listen, yesterday's game, we'll get to it in a minute. Certainly not the best from the Jets, but they dominated that game pretty much from start to finish. Buffalo didn't have a lot, playing 3-4 and playing in Minnesota the night before. But there was a heavy advantage when it came to goaltending yesterday. And I don't know if you really need to get into it much more than that. James Reimer, as he has done against the Winnipeg Jets multiple times, as Remo outlined earlier, and we'll get him to go through those numbers in a second, was the clear first star of the game. And listen, I know Eric Comrie's taken a lot of heat. Wasn't good enough yesterday, and he had been really good in his previous 6-7 starts for the Winnipeg Jets. So, listen, it was disappointing. It was a big missed opportunity for the Jets, and now they're back on the ice practicing as we speak, and looking forward to trying to get back in the win column this week at home with games against the New Jersey Devils on Friday. We filled up the WST section for that. Looking forward to seeing you there. And, of course, tomorrow against the Washington Capitals. Tons of other things to talk about. Vic Hovland wins at the Valhalla. Rachel Holman wins the Women's World Championships. Big game for Canada yesterday on the pitch down at the Nations League. If you caught that last night after the Jets played, of course, they lost to Mexico in somewhat controversial circumstances earlier this week. So they were playing in the 3-4 game, but they were playing against the United States. And as I said to the guys on the Lock Shop last hour, honestly, watching the second half of that game without Alphonso Davies, with Jesse Marsh, the manager, kicked out of the game, to beat the U.S., especially with everything else going on, I felt more joy in beating the United States in the third place game than I think I would have beating Panama in the gold medal game for the first trophy in 25 years. So shout out to the Canadian men's national team for what they did last night. Of course, it was a wild weekend of March Madness and tons going on in the National Hockey League outside of the Winnipeg Jets with very, very tight playoff races in both the East and the West. So we're going to dive into all of it today. Great to have you with us. If you're with us on YouTube, great to see you. Hit that thumbs up button and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And shout out to all you podcast listeners making us a part of your day as well. Just as we bring in Michael Remis, a huge thanks to the sponsors that make WST happen each and every day. Coolbet Canada, Princess Auto, Manitoba Battery, Rollies Transfer, Canadian Club, St. Vital Dental Center, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, fansfirst.ca, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, the Winnipeg Jets, and we will get to a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. Let's get Remis in here and get this show on the road. How was the weekend, dude?
Man, I need a weekend from the weekend. These kids tire me out. Birthday parties, events, gatherings, activities. Man, by the Sunday rolls around at the evening or the end of the day, I'm just sitting on the couch and just zonking out hard. So enjoyed the March Madness. I did take in some of the conference championships and NCAA gymnastics as well. March Madness and other sports too, Hustlers. So, and of course, the Winnipeg Jets yesterday afternoon and a full slate of NHL games Saturday. So I'm feeling good. I was, got to be honest, Connor writes on our Twitter account, now known as X, saying thoughts on the loss. And I was surprised at I don't know, the vitriol. I don't know the word to use. The negativity coming out. Yeah, it was a tough game. They're still in first place, and I think it's going to be more telling what happens on Tuesday and Friday this week than a Sunday afternoon. I think disappointing, sold out crowd, 10th sell of the year. Love to see that. It was Buffalo. I mean, Edmonton did lose to Buffalo as well, and Connor Hellebuck wasn't in net. But hey, they had a lot of chances, but James Reimer, he's done that before against the Jets. So tough one, but I am a bit surprised to see all the negativity considering the body of work of the team this year.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is not, we're talking about pro sports with fans. A calm, calculated, big picture approach is not often what happens after games like that. That's one that you assume that you're going to win. And when you don't, people have questions. And I mean, you hope that doesn't make things more difficult for the Jets down the road. I mean, they've still got 8 points on Dallas. Dallas is a couple games in hand. But, when you looked at that schedule and you're sort of looking ahead to, matchups and whatnot, that was one that I think everyone had a W beside their name. And it didn't happen. But as we say in the lock shop, that is why they play the games. I mean, listen, James Reimer, let's start off with him. He was absolutely brilliant yesterday, Remo, and making a number of saves, including one that was straight out of the back lane at the road hockey game on his ass, waving his hand, stealing a goal from the top corner. But as you tweeted out earlier today, this is not the first time James Reimer has come to Winnipeg and taken over a game against the Winnipeg Jets for a team that, frankly, did not quite have the firepower of the home team.
Yeah, and James Reimer, I mean, he's played on some pretty rough teams the last couple of years and stolen some wins against the Jets, Buffalo. Yesterday he was excellent. I do have the poll out saying the biggest reason for the Jets lost 44%, saying Reimer stole it. But I'm looking back and I was like, I think I've seen this game before from James Reimer, especially in Winnipeg, October 30, 2021. Stop 34-35. The Sharks win 2-1 in overtime. March 6, 2023 in Winnipeg, almost 2 years ago, or a little more than 2 years ago, 36 saves on 38 shots. Sharks win 3-2 in overtime. And even later in 2023, it was in San Jose, but a 41 save shutout from James Reimer. So I don't know what it is when facing the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, they've got his number a couple times. I purposely didn't include the times where they lit him up for a couple goals, but he has had these big performances in Winnipeg against the Jets, and he wasn't the only Manitoban having a big performance. Tyson Kozak scoring and accounted this time, and his parents were shown celebrating. They have to cut back to them after. So again, if it was a game where they didn't severely outshoot Buffalo, and you're not seeing highlight reel saves from the opposing goalie, I think you can get a bit more upset. But Scheifele robbed near the end, Adam Lowry in close. Vilardi's taking it to the net. Certainly, it's tough that you couldn't score, and they had a couple chances. I thought Paterka, let him walk in at the top of the dot all alone, ripped him past Comrie, and that Dahlin shot. I mean, that was wide open for a one-timer, beautifully placed in the opposite corner. Those are really good shots, and I know people are getting on Eric Comrie in our mentions. Like, someone wrote in our comments, this is YouTube comments, the Jets never win with Comrie. I'm like, he's literally 5-1 in his last 6 games with a .937 save percentage and 9 goals allowed in his last 6 games. Going back to January 10, 5-2-1, .930 save percentage, 13 goals allowed in his last 8 games. This is why backup goalies are backup goalies. They don't have the consistency enough to be a starter. You're going to have these bad games. It was his second game this year, allowing 4, and I thought he had been very solid since December 31 against Colorado. Brush it off and move on. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong here for responding seriously to some of these comments here.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Listen, I was at the game yesterday, and I walked out with 15,000 other people, and basically saying to my buddy, how the hell did we lose that game? I mean, it was just one of those games where they were so in control. I mean, Buffalo was not doing and generating much at all. But it seems like when they had their few chances, they went in. The Paterka goal was a beautiful shot. I mean, I don't think it was even categorized. I know Ken talked about this on KNR. I don't think it got the designation of a high danger chance. And I mean, to me, I guess it was sort of borderline. I mean, it was an incredible world-class shot by an NHL player. I think more often than not, that is going to get saved. The Dahlin was an absolutely perfect line drive on a rope into the top corner of the net. I mean, listen, that was perfect. Would you have loved to had it maybe be in a bit better position? Sure. Obviously, Kozak was slapping in a rebound. But the goal that really killed the Jets, to me, Remis, was Alex Tuch's shorty in the third period. You know, where the Jets had made it 3-2. They were pressing. They had some great chances on the power play. The next thing you know, the puck gets past Gabe Vilardi, and Alex Tuch goes in and makes no mistake. And, you know, the fact that they'd come back and then given up another one, it just, it really did sort of seem to take the steam out of them. Although, credit to Nikolai Ehlers. I mean, that third goal the Jets were able to score was one that certainly would have ended up on some highlight reels if they'd been able to finish the job last night. But a clear goes down to the net, into the empty net. Buffalo scores, and that was it. And again, I think you said it. In a lot of ways, just a real missed opportunity for the Jets, and you know, goaltending at the top of the list, but maybe a little less finish from the Jets than they needed last night available. And listen, credit, I guess, to Buffalo for making the most of the very few chances they had, because they were opportunistic. I'll say that yesterday. But listen, it wasn't like the Jets came in and just delivered a complete no-show. Which sometimes happens with teams coming off the road against, you know, lesser opponents. Listen, I thought they played hard. They battled back. They certainly didn't quit. It just wasn't good enough yesterday against James Reimer, but still a big sense of a missed opportunity. And I think disappointment coming out of that game yesterday, Reem.
Yeah, I mean, look at shots on goal, has 36-17. Shot attempts, the Jets more than doubled. Buffalo 71-32. High danger, 13-2. So the chances were there. I think some concerns. Power play, they did score 1 for 3. A nice play by Nino Niederreiter, breaking his 15-goal game. Goalless Stroh taking it to the net. But it's 2 for 19 in the last 7. You know, this power play that was carrying them for a while. You're not really seeing the goals. Edmonton, again, that game against Edmonton has really struggled. They haven't capitalized on 5-on-3s here lately like they were earlier. And you'd like, you know, Mark Scheifele hasn't scored in 8 games. Also, Arniel was asked about that after the game. He did get robbed late by Reimer, and they seem to be confident, and they're saying, hey, we've done it before. This is just a rough stretch. They'll get over it. And yeah, the Tuch shorty sealed it. You know, they're on the power play, having chances. You know, he gets on the breakaway and scores that Ehlers goal. I mean, there's not too many guys, who can fly down the wing like him. I mean, they don't call him fly for nothing, and unleash a 93.9 mile an hour rocket in the top corner. That was a beautiful goal, and I actually thought Colin Miller had a really nice goal. Missed a big chance in the first period. Beautiful shot, but just couldn't get enough past Reimer. And again, here's the poll, Huss. Biggest reason for the Jets' loss, 40% saying Reimer stole it, 19% say poor goaltending, 31% couldn't finish, 10% just one of those nights.
Yeah, listen, I mean, it's definitely goaltending, and whether you want to just give it to Reimer or a combination of the two, I think that's probably where things. I mean, listen, if Eric Comrie's able to make one more save, that game's going to OT, and the Jets probably win that overtime game 8 out of 10 times. So, I mean, but listen, one mistake, one goal can cost you. And it's the regulation losses right now that, you know, if the Jets were in a more dangerous position when it came to playoffs, it could have been much more, much more damaging. But as Waiters just said, hot take, this game will have no effect on the playoffs, this loss to Buffalo. And I'm tending to agree.
Man, I saw comments like, this is the worst time to be playing bad towards the playoffs. Look, there's 11 games left. They win against Washington tomorrow. The script is flipped. And we all remember last year, Huss, when the Jets won against Colorado 7-0 towards the end of the season. And you're like, oh, the Jets are going to smoke Colorado in the playoffs. They got steamrolled. So, I mean, you can make up whatever narrative you want. They lost. I did look at Money Puck. I am keeping track, Huss, of the percentage to get first in the division. It was over 90% before. And they're now at 85.7%. So, I mean, that assumes they're going to continue to win at the rate that they've been winning all year. And Dallas is at 40%. They would have to go on a big heater, and the Jets would have to go on a big losing skid. But we are keeping an eye here on
the fact that Dallas has the 2 games in hand does complicate things a little bit. And let's face it felt a lot better at 10 than it does at 8. And listen, you know what? Like, Dallas has not played great against some of the lesser teams. I mean, in the last week and a half, they've gone to overtime. They did it with Philly on the weekend, and I believe it was the Ducks earlier than that. But they found a way to get 2 points. And that certainly could have been the case for Winnipeg yesterday, but it wasn't. And the Jets maybe burning one of their mullies, if you will, with what's happened. We are getting some news out of Jets practice. A little bit of breaking news, shall we say? Remis, what Gabe Vilardi now out week to week apparently.
Jets practice today, and we'll talk with Mike McIntyre coming up and hopefully get some sound bites from the skate. Neil Pionk wasn't in practice. Gabe Vilardi not in practice. Vilardi did take puck to the face, so in his spot, Alex Iafallo was on the top line, and they did do some other line shuffling. It was like the end of last game. Ehlers with Lowry and Appleton, Niederreiter, Nemestikov, and Perfetti. And Scott Arniel saying after the game, and here's the tweet from Mitch Clinton as I bring it up right now. Scott Arniel says, Gabriel Vilardi is week to week with an upper body injury. It's not his ear, which was hit with a puck against Buffalo. So, I mean, you look at, I think he's been in a bit of a scoring slump. Maybe doesn't have the jump that he did before. He's having a career year, Vilardi, Huss, and I think a lot of that was health, but they're not really saying what it's been. But, you know, I think at this time of year, you want to make sure guys are ready for playoffs. And if you are dealing something like Neil Pionk is, and I think you're seeing, you know, guys have had to step in, maybe play above their role with him out. They do miss him on the power play as well. But Vilardi, he's going to be out week to week. So it sounds like nothing too serious, but, you know, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, one other thing. You mentioned Colin Miller. I thought he had a real strong game, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but Logan Stanley had a hell of a game yesterday too. You know, for the first time all season, he'd spent, you know, multiple games in the press box. And, I mean, listen, it's one game. I get it. But I thought that he came in and, you know, certainly did himself a pretty good service in the eyes of the coaching staff, that if he's able to play like that, again, consider who they were playing and what Buffalo was bringing. But had a couple of assists last night, and I thought looked as good as he had maybe at any point this season. And Colin Miller was dangerous yesterday. It was an interesting look to that third pair yesterday, with Hayden Fleury out and Big Stan back in. Listen, we're going to get a little bit of audio coming up in just a minute, but let me shout out our friends at Rolly's Transfer, the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba, family owned and operated for over 60 years here in the Peg. If you got a move coming up in spring or summer, get on over to Rollies.com. And top right corner, you'll see request an estimate on their website. Click on that and put in the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies. And then let the folks at Rollies know where you're moving to, when you're planning on moving, and what needs to be moved. And their friendly staff will turn it around quickly with a great quote and get you locked in to receive white glove treatment and service from the most trusted name in moving, Rollies Transfer. If moving this year, find out more, request an estimate today over at Rollies.com. Cheers to our friends at Canadian Club. If you're looking for whiskeys at your local Manitoba liquor marts. You'll realize a lot of the American stuff is not there anymore, but that's fine because the good stuff, the iconic, the standard Canadian Club since 1848 is waiting for you. You've got the original Canadian Club, the 100% rye Canadian Club Classic, and it's all waiting for your local Manitoba liquor marts. So when you're thinking whiskey, make it Canada's finest Canadian Club. Pick it up today at your local BLL. Shout out to Terry and the gang over at St. Vital Dental Center as well. It's kind of feeling a little more like spring. The weather's going to be looking nicer. The sun's shining out. You got spring cleaning around your house. How about spring cleaning in your mouth? Have you been neglecting a visit to the dentist? Well, why don't head down and check out the beautiful new facility at St. Vital Dental Center with my pal, Dr. Terry James, and his great staff. They do it all from 6-month-olds to 99-year-olds and everything in between. Services like dental implants as well. But of course, cleanings. Keep those teeth clean. Prevent further decay and more. And they'll be able to do that for you. They're at 167 St. Anne's. Free parking in the back. Very convenient to get to. Find out more, book an appointment with Dr. Terry and his great team at St. Vital Dental Center online at stvitaldental.ca. And just before we hear from the Jets, shout out to Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery. You can feel the season's changing. We're getting out of winter. And now we'll be worrying about Sea-Doo batteries, boat batteries, ATVs, and more. Well, whatever you need a battery for, you'll be able to shop local and get the best price in town, period. Beating the pants off the big box stores at Manitoba Battery with 2 locations, Logan Avenue, Dovercourt Drive. And the best service around as well is they'll deliver those batteries to you for free anywhere inside the perimeter with any purchase over $60. It is just that easy. For all your battery needs, make it Manitoba Battery. Find out more. Order online today at manitobabattery.com. All right, Mike's going to join us in 10 or 15 post-practice, but let's sort of wrap yesterday's loss to the Buffalo Sabres. Here's what Scott Arniel had to say about the defeat on home ice to the 30th place team in the NHL.
132. So do you feel like your team generated enough to win a hockey game today?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
We tripled them on scoring chances. So their goaltender was great. Played great.
And is it a matter of maybe the Sabres were just pretty opportunistic with the few chances they had?
Power play, shorthanded, face-off, and then a line rush. So we made some mistakes in some of those situations. Yeah, I mean, you watch those games that they happen. You can get all those chances that we had, and, all of a sudden they just go back out the other way and it's in the net. So just we haven't had one of those in a while where we dominate like that and not come out on the right end of it. But our goaltender played really, really well.
High praise for James Reimer yesterday, no doubt. He was the number 1 star of the game and certainly was the difference maker. Now, I mean, a couple guys got roughed up during the game. We did see the lines shift. Here's what Arniel had to say about that from yesterday's Sunday afternoon tilt.
First period, Gabe takes that shot to the face. I imagine he needed some repairs and was gone a bit. And then Nino, was he called into protocol after that hit?
Yeah, he had to go in there. Yeah.
Certainly speaks to the toughness, I guess, of both players that they returned, and for Nino, a big goal for him.
Yeah, Gabe just had a cut, and so he had to get that fixed. And then, Nino once he was cleared, we were good to go.
And you made the one change on the blue line. Logan ended up having 2 assists today. Did you like what you saw from him after a bit of a layoff?
Yeah. I mean, it was, I don't want these guys to sit too long. And, I like come in. I thought he did a lot of good things.
All right, so there's Arniel. And again, this was from right after yesterday's game. So at that point, didn't seem like there was anything with Gabe Vilardi that was going to complicate things, but apparently not. So we'll get more on that with Mike when he joins us in just a few minutes. Listen, the one thing I'll say, I mean, the Jets certainly were not at their best. And, the top line certainly generated some things. I mean, Mark Scheifele taking a couple penalties in the offensive zone, that you don't want to see happen. And, of course, he's a little snake bit right now. He hasn't scored in 5 right now. Arniel talked about his game and just the lack of lighting the lamp over the last 5.
I think you might want to check how many chances they've had. They've had a lot of chances. And, that stretches it players go through, lines go through, where it just doesn't seem to go in the net. But their amount of opportunities they've gotten in the last few games is, especially tonight, there was some real good looks. And I think those guys, the idea is to keep getting inside, keep shooting the puck, and keep making those plays. And Scheif had a couple that looked like almost empty netters, and got a stick and got a blade and got whatever. But those turn over the course of the season. Those go both ways.
All right. There's Arniel on the Scheifele line, who certainly was generating plenty of opportunities, and just having a tough time getting them to go in, particularly for 55. Here's one more from the coach. And this is a little bit more on the different looks we saw at the lines. Nikolai Ehlers moving around, obviously Gabe Vilardi being out at a time, Alex Iafallo moving up. Here's what Arniel had to say about some of the shifting up front.
One of the in-game adjustments we sometimes see is you'll put Nikolai with Lowry and Appleton. What do you like about that kind of switch up? I know you like how his line's been playing, but in those situations...
Tonight did it tonight through Nino just because I was trying to get one guy from every line. I wanted Nino to stand on top of my goaltender with Fetz and Vladdy, and then obviously Fly with somebody from Lowry's line was going to get there. It was more about trying to keep Reimer in the net, try to keep him in position where he couldn't see pucks, and we got to see a few more. That if I have anyone complain about it, all those chances, probably a little bit more traffic on our part.
All right, so there's Coach Scott Arniel. Listen, Brandon Tanev continues to basically come back and reclaim all the popularity he had as a Winnipeg Jet during his first stint. He was a factor yesterday for sure. He spoke after the game. Here's what Brandon Tanev had to say about a tough night and a tough result for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, I think we had our fair share of chances. Maybe hit a couple of posts where we let the puck to go in. The goalies made some big saves, but at the end of the day, I think it's still harping on the little details, the things that we know we're good at, and we'll get back to that at practice tomorrow. But it was a game of chances. I think we had our fair share. It's just capitalizing and putting those in the back of the net when we can.
Is it an element of their game that played into that at all, or is it really just a matter because you guys did have so many scoring chances today?
Yeah, it's one of those things where almost when you had so many chances, the puck just wouldn't find the back of the net at sometimes. But it's sticking with it, staying positive and committed to playing the right way, and the puck will get there.
All right, so there's a Brandon Tanev post game. Here's a little bit more from Tanev on the Sabres, who got the win.
That's a team with some good players on that team. Their goaltender played great tonight. I think we can challenge his eyes a little bit more, get into the crease, make some dirty pucks a little bit tougher for him to play against. But I think at the end of the day, we're focusing on our game each night, shift by shift, practice by practice. That mentality, I think, we'll get back to that tomorrow. But, there's some positives to take out of that game. I think we'll get back to practice, and we're ready for the next one here soon.
All right, and one more from Brandon Tanev, just more on the line that he's been on. And, of course, this is, his arrival coincided with them moving Morgan Barron into the middle, playing center. Here's what Tanev had to say about the line of Morgan Barron in the middle.
Yeah, he's a smart 200-foot player. It's easy to play the game with him and Al. And they're both very smart players. They see the ice well. I think we understand our identity, our commitment to playing the right way, that whatever the team needs, the little details, getting pucks in net, physicality, being on the forecheck, bring the energy, maybe when the game's a little flat at times. But I think Morgan and Al have done a great job acclimating me to the game, to the Jets hockey, and they're both two great players, and fortunate to be playing with them.
Seems to fit in down the middle. Would you have known that he wasn't a center at all before this year? It seems like it's natural.
Yeah, I had no idea, to be honest with you, but he's doing well on draws. He's playing the right way, and he's staying committed.
All right, so there's Brandon Tanev. And for those wondering about how the lineup looked today, with Gabriel Vilardi out, Alex Iafallo moving up in the lineup, Rasmus Kupari is in, and the fourth line was Tanev, Barron, and Kupari. And just thinking about that, Remis, that is going to be one of the fastest lines in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, Rasmus Kupari, I love checking the NHL Edge stats. He had one of the top 5 fastest recorded times on the ice this year. Barron as well. He's one of the Jets' fastest skater. He's up there in NHL Edge. And we know what Brandon Tanev brings with his speed, tenacity, and physical play. So I do like the look of that line. And I think the line 3 and line 4 has been kind of blended with, Tanev and Iafallo scoring goals. And Alex Iafallo, he's had a really nice stretch here, and he's getting rewarded with some time on the top line. I'm curious what they do. A lot of people asking each other, what are they going to do with the power play? Does a guy like Nino or Iafallo step in for Vilardi, or do they keep Perfetti on there? Maybe Nino kind of goes to the down low role in front of the net. I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see, what they do. We haven't seen any reports on that.
Yeah, well, that's something we'll hit Mike with, and we'll probably get a little bit more of an idea tomorrow when the team's playing the Washington Capitals. As I mentioned, at third pairing of Miller and Stanley did have a strong game. Miller, of course, scored. Here's what Colin Miller had to say about a tough result, but an overall good game, especially for him personally.
We definitely had our chances. Their goalie played well. They did a good job of clogging up, I think, the neutral zone and their own end. So. But just one of those nights, a little bit snake bitten. They played well defensively, so we'll look at it, move on.
Can still clinch a playoff spot today if St. Louis loses. I'm sure you guys would like to win your way in. I guess that goes without saying almost.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, anyway it happens, obviously it was a big goal for this team throughout the year, so hopefully that happens.
All right, so Colin Miller. Now, Miller also part of the PP2 unit right now. And listen, it was PP2 that ended up getting on the board last night for the Winnipeg Jets. Here's what he just had to say about the power play lately.
I think as of late it's been a little hot and cold, and there's going to be stretches like that throughout the year. Obviously, that first unit's rolling along pretty good for us all year. So I think, just got to take it, not get too overwhelmed with it, make sure that we keep sticking to the things that make our units do well and go from there.
All right, and listen, one more from Miller before we bring in Mike McIntyre in just a minute. Colin was asked about what he's seen from Cole Perfetti lately, and Big Stan, Logan Stanley, who was back in the lineup playing with him on that third pair yesterday and had 2 assists.
Svets has definitely taken a step this year, there's no doubt. He's having a really strong year. Solidified himself as such a good second liner. And with that shot on the power play, when he gets these looks, he's gonna capitalize more often than not. So he's been great.
What do you think of Logan Stanley, who obviously sat a few games, that comes in 2 assists today?
Yeah, I thought Stan was great. It's not easy, we have a lot of defensemen on this team right now, but everybody can play. And I think that we need everybody because there's going to be stuff that happens throughout this stretch here, and he was great.
There's Colin Miller, a bit of a wrap of yesterday's loss to the Buffalo Sabres. Mike McIntyre is going to join us in just a couple of minutes. I'll save this for Mike coming up because we'll hit him with it. But again, Jets back in action tomorrow, and you're moving from the 30th place team in the National Hockey League to the first place team in the National Hockey League. The Jets still first in the Central, but 2 back of Washington for first overall. A big one tomorrow night, and obviously the bright lights in Winnipeg with Alex Ovechkin coming so close to Wayne Gretzky's all-time NHL goal-scoring record. So I'm sure we'll dominate a lot of the show tomorrow night. But listen, Mike's going to come up in just a minute and join us. I do want to shout out our friends at Princess Auto for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Of course, Princess Auto is synonymous with Winnipeg, founded right here in Winnipeg, headquartered in Winnipeg, and now with 3 locations in Manitoba, including 2 in the city, where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, out in Brandon, or shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. And speaking of great Winnipeg companies, Wallace & Wallace has been the leaders in fencing and overhead doors since 1946. If you need the security and protection of a new fence, or if winter's done a number on your old one, give them a call. They've got you covered with vinyl, ornamental, chain link, welded wire, wood fences. And for those of you that need a new garage door, Wallace & Wallace has the largest selection in town, one perfect to match your home and add value to it as well. 452-2700 is the number. Give them a call. They'll be happy to come down and give you a free estimate. You can also visit them online at wallacefences.com or pop down and see them in person on Lowson Crescent, just off of Kenniston. And hey, as we get into the spring of things, guys, if you're looking to up your menswear game, head on down to F Apparel. Custom suits beginning at $400, chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles and the biggest and best selection of menswear accessories in town. 2 great promos on right now. One for 2025 graduates. Pop by with your grad, and you'll get a free custom shirt and tie with the purchase of any suit for graduation. And, of course, they've got great deals and discounts for wedding parties when you get your suits for the big day at F Apparel. 190 Smith Street downtown. Check them out online or make an appointment to come in for a fitting at F. That's EPH. Apparel.com. All right, let's get Mike McIntyre in here. And Mike, what's going on? How was the inbox? What was the panic meter of Jet fans after a bit of an uncharacteristic outing yesterday, where I can't say the team played terrible. I mean, I think we've seen them play better, but a combination of one goalie having an incredible game and one maybe not being up to their recent standard goes to show that anyone can beat anyone on any given night. Hold on a sec, Mike. You're muted. Is that on us, Reem?
Sorry, that was me. Go ahead, Mike.
It certainly is a cliche that any team on any given night, and we've heard the Jets trot that out, but yesterday was exhibit A of that. And you're right, Huss. I mean, the Jets had 71 shot attempts. You'd take that any day of the week. And I mean, I don't put a whole lot of stock in the old deserve to win meter, which is one of those metrics out there, but I don't know. I saw it anywhere from like 80 something percent to, I think at one point it was in the 90s. That's a game that, you know, if the Jets play the way they did yesterday and you replayed that game, they're going to win that game more often than not, but they didn't. And it wasn't just goaltending, special teams, which I would say has been a bit of a concern for this group for a little while now. It kind of reared its ugly head. Yes, the Jets did get one power play goal of their own, but they gave one up, and then that shorthanded goal was the backbreaker in the third. You know, that's just a play that, there it is, 88.5. I guess that's the final. So yeah, I mean, that's domination, you know, right there. And you know, that could be a tough loss for the Jets for sure. Well, obviously we won't know for a few weeks what it ultimately means. Maybe it means nothing. Maybe they end up regretting not getting 1 or 2 points out of that game when it comes to first place. You know, a lot's going to depend on what the Dallas Stars do. They have an easier schedule than the Jets, but they also have a busier schedule than the Jets. And I think that's something, you know, that can't be overlooked. Like, I think we're seeing it a little bit with Winnipeg. They've played a lot of games lately. And, you know, even really good teams, when you're going like steady as the Jets have been, you're going to have some off nights. And, you know, look at the Toronto Maple Leafs the other night in Nashville, right? Like, the Leafs are kind of fighting, kind of like the Jets, but they're in an even bigger fight for first. And, you know, they get up 2 goals and then they just implode and give up 5 straight. So it's happening to good teams all across the league. You know, now the onus is on how the Jets respond here. And as you pointed out, Huss, there's a lot less margin for error when you're facing the number 1 team, as they will be tomorrow, versus the number 30 team as they did yesterday.
Yeah, you know, yesterday it was a fun night, or a fun afternoon in the barn. I mean, a sold out crowd. There was tons of kids and tons of 90-year-old women celebrating birthdays.
I noticed that it was like a competition. They kept flashing, and I'm like, oh, they already showed that person. And wait a minute, that's another person.
Well, it started off with, hey, it's my first game celebrating my 96th birthday at the Jets game, and everyone gave a big thing, you know, applause and whatnot. And then later on, the poor lady that was celebrating her 94th, you would have thought that would have taken center stage, but no. Right. 2 years younger than the other birthday celebrant. But I mentioned the amount of families and kids at the game yesterday. You know, lots of Go Jets goes early on, some good spirit in the crowd. And, you know, it was those goals that went in for Buffalo that sort of took the steam, I would say, as much out of the team as it did of the crowd. And listen, for all the laurels that we're giving James Reimer, who once again has had a big time performance against the Winnipeg Jets, I mean, calling a spade, Eric Comrie just did not have it last night. And I mean, the difference between probably winning that game, Mike, is probably one save. I mean, on one of those games. I mean, as I said, if that game goes to overtime, I think you're giving the Jets another 2 points 8 out of 10 times. And it really, I did think that Alex Tuch shorthanded goal, the killer in the third period after they were really pressing and they'd already scored to get back to 3-2.
Right. Yeah, it was. And, I'm not going to dump on the backup for his overall body of work because it's actually been really solid. Like, I think I may be off a point or two here. I think even after yesterday, he's something like 239 and 903, 904, something like that, which is actually above average, like compared to league average save percentage, goals against. So, and that would be for like every goaltender. So he is, at least by the statistics, an above average backup goaltender, playing behind the best goaltender in the league. So goaltending has not been an issue for the Jets. Yesterday was the rare day, though, where you can definitely say the other team had a better goaltender on the ice. The Jets had the second best goaltending. And, you talked about my inbox. Like, it happens, and I expected, people say, oh, this is why they needed to get a better backup. The Jets are in trouble. Let me just say this. If you're worrying about the play of the backup when it comes to the playoffs, you're in trouble anyways. Doesn't matter really who your backup is, unless you've gone out and got, a 1A, 1B type situation, which the Jets, they don't have that luxury cap-wise. Who's going to be a 1B when Connor Hellebuck's playing 60-something game? It's why Laurent Brossoit left. He wanted an opportunity. Now, he's been hurt all year, unfortunately. But the point is, the Jets were never going to have a backup that would essentially be challenging Connor Hellebuck for playing time. That's just not how the situation is in Winnipeg. So for all of those who are now saying, oh, my goodness, we're in trouble in the playoffs with that kind of goaltending, Eric Comrie, I mean, if Eric Comrie is in the net in the playoffs, things have gone horribly wrong. Either injury, I guess, would be the only scenario, really. Or mop up, I guess, in a game or something.
Yeah, listen, I mean, I don't want to dump all over Comrie. I mean, I think that if we're all being honest and we look at what Eric has done over the course of this season, I think he's exceeded just about everyone's expectations with what he's provided to the Winnipeg Jets when he's been in net. Fortunately, yesterday wasn't that night, or wasn't that afternoon. And listen, it's one game of 82. There's a number of things you could pick into it, but I don't think that a poor night by Comrie is going to be, a topic going forward. Now, I mean, we'll see how tight the Central gets and whether they need to play Hellebuck a couple more times. I don't think that is the plan. I think they probably mapped it out already till the end of the season. But the bottom line is a missed opportunity for the Jets to, get a little bit closer to clinching the Central. And, it makes these next games coming up this week, you've got a little less wiggle room with the Dallas Stars, who've been finding ways to get 2 points more often than not when they play, and they do have the Minnesota Wild tonight at home as a big favorite. Mike, let's get to practice today and kind of look ahead to tomorrow. First things first, what's up with Gabriel Vilardi?
Yeah, some bad news out of Jets practice today, and a bit surprising. I mean, we saw him take that puck to the face, and there was concern because he actually was gone for a lot longer than I would have expected, just for a guy.
I think the rest of the first period.
And he got hit 5 minutes in. Yeah. So it was like, then you start worrying like, oh boy, is this a fractured cheekbone or orbital bone or something? It was none of that. It was just a cut, but it was kind of surprising that he missed as much as he did. But then we find out today, Huss, that there's actually something else going on with Gabe Vilardi, unrelated to that puck. And that the team has now shut him down, and he's going to be out, what Coach Scott Arniel says is week to week. That's a little ominous. First of all, there's barely over 3 weeks left in the regular season. So when you say week to week, you hope that it's not to week to week to week, because they'll quickly run out of weeks before the games get really meaningful. I suspect let's look at Gabe Vilardi's last few games. He has not looked himself. And, I think I saw a few people say, like, of all the things they didn't expect to see with that top line with the Jets, that it's Vilardi now kind of holding back his line mates. And I would actually agree, the last few games, Vilardi's looked a little bit out of sync. And I think that's because he's been dealing with something that now, maybe it got exacerbated yesterday. Maybe that also explains why he was gone so long in the first period. Maybe they were kind of weighing the merits of whether he should even return to the game. But whatever the injury is, and Scott Arniel did not specify it today, I do wonder, Huss, like, if this is not similar to Neil Pionk's injury, in the sense that if they were playing a playoff game tomorrow, Scott Arniel basically already said that Neil Pionk would probably be in the lineup. And I have to think Gabe Vilardi would be similar, but you'd be getting them at less than 100%. And this is where I'm always a positive guy. I always look for silver linings, glasses being half full. Here's the silver lining on all this. Maybe, because the Jets have this buffer, 8 points ahead of Dallas, like, every game is not a must win. They'd be nice to win, but the team, they're in a very comfortable spot. They can afford to now do this and err on the side of being extra cautious. And the end result may be that you get a Neil Pionk, at 100% in the playoffs, as opposed to what you were going to get if you tried to play through it. And same with Gabe Vilardi. And, those could be two very good ads for the Jets. Instead of getting them at 75% because they've fought through and played all 82, you're going to get them a better version of them when the games, when the stakes become high. So I got to think that that's the situation here, and it's not cause for huge alarm. And, one other positive, I guess, Huss, out of this is we're now going to see a little bit of experimentation in the forward group. And, one thing about the Jets this year, there has not been a whole lot of that. They've been pretty set in stone with what their lines have looked like. But now's a chance to look at some other combinations. Scott Arniel talked yesterday about wanting a guy that goes to the net kind of on each line and how he configured the lines in the third. And again, that's a good thing because you're going to need to make adjustments. What's the one criticism I think we can agree with the last two playoff runs with the Jets? They won game one in both series against Vegas and Colorado. The other team made adjustments. The Jets then lost 4 straight in both series. Clearly, Winnipeg was unable to counter the adjustments. They have a new coach this year. And if you're Scott Arniel, having some different looks in your back pocket for inevitably when you have to make some adjustments, I think that's probably going to be a good thing down the run here.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm with you, and I'm looking forward to kind of seeing, how things look tomorrow night. I mean, the way the forwards are scheduled to go tomorrow, as we mentioned, Iafallo, who has played everywhere this year for the Winnipeg Jets, makes the move to the top line with Connor and Scheifele. Lowry is going to play with Appleton and Nikolai Ehlers, who flops his spot with Nino Niederreiter. Nino, who broke the goalless streak yesterday, getting off the Schneids, playing with Vlad and Perfetti. And then a line that I think might be one of the fastest in hockey. I mean, you put Kupari on with Tanev and Morgan Barron.
Yeah.
That line is going to have a lot of juice when it comes to forechecking and jumping in on pucks. But did we get any update on Neil Pionk today? I mean, as we get into this new week, what's the latest on 4?
Yeah, we did. And the update is there's kind of no update. He's not skating yet. I will say this, though. I know there was some concern last week in Jetsland. There was that picture that was posted. I think it was Josh Morrissey's Instagram, where they met Theo Vaughn at their hotel in Seattle.
Big Jets fan. Theo Vaughn,
yes,
big Jets fan now.
I actually chatted with Josh Morrissey about that the other day. He found it quite funny, and he hadn't seen the clip until I actually showed it to him. But yeah, they ran into Theo Vaughn. He was staying in the same hotel that they were in Seattle before their game. And So they met him and took pictures of them. But anyways, Neil Pionk was in a walking boot in that photo, which had some people going, oh my goodness, like maybe this is worse than we thought. When you see a walking boot, you think something's broken, right? Well, update to that. Last, where were we? Edmonton on Thursday. Thursday morning, had just come out of the Jets room following morning skate, and Neil Pionk was there, just wearing runners, no brace, no boot. And he hopped on the elliptical that they had in the hallway, and he rode it for 15 minutes, 20 minutes without any issues. And again, nothing protecting his foot or his leg. So I think maybe the boot was almost just for maybe extra support or something. But I got to think that, if and maybe there is something broken. I don't know. He's talked in the past. He's played through a broken foot before. Maybe it's a bone. I don't know what the injury is. But in any event, I thought that was at least a little bit encouraging. Now we are entering week 2 with Neil Pionk of the week-to-week scenario. And again, when the coach says week to week, it doesn't say how many weeks. It could be 2. I guess it could be 50. So, for the Jets, again, the playoffs start 3 weeks from this coming Saturday, either Saturday or Sunday. We suspect they'll be playing their game 1. So there are still a few weeks left to get that week-to-week diagnosis knocked down to something less. But yeah, Pionk still is not skating. So, for the time being, the Jets are now without a top 4 defenseman and a first-line winger in Gabe Vilardi. Obviously, that's going to test their depth a little bit.
I brought it up earlier today, and I joked, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but Logan Stanley had a really good game yesterday. He had been in the press box for the better part of a week or whatever, basically since the trade deadline and the acquisition of Luke Schenn. He moved in to take Hayden Fleury's spot, and he had a couple of assists. Colin Miller scored yesterday. I mean, the third pairing definitely was impactful in that game. Yeah. Did the coach say anything about how the blue line will look tomorrow? And did this change things as far as the depth chart, if you will, on the blue line?
Yeah, I don't think Hayden Fleury was getting too comfortable with that lineup spot to begin with. Now, I think, Huss, the reason Fleury was in over Stanley was primarily because Luke Schenn was playing on the third pair because Neil Pionk was healthy. Mm-hmm. And even the biggest Logan Stanley fan in the world, and there are some out there, by the way, but even the biggest Logan Stanley fan in the world, I can't imagine would think that the idea of a Stanley and Schenn pairing would be optimal for the Jets. Luke Schenn does a lot of great things, and I've really liked his play. He's very slow by NHL standards. And Logan Stanley will obviously never dazzle anyone with his foot speed either. But I think that's where maybe now with Pionk's injury and Schenn has moved up, and I thought he's played really well with Dylan Sandberg. You don't have to worry. Colin Miller is a lot more mobile than Luke Schenn. So you can put Stanley with Miller and not worry about it the same way you would if Pionk was healthy and now you're trying to find a way for Stanley to get in, but he's got to play with Schenn. So I think that opened the door to begin with. I thought the Fleury and Miller pairing, I thought on the road trip last week, Huss really struggled. And I actually thought it was Colin Miller who struggled more than Hayden Fleury, to be honest. But it's Fleury who comes out. And you're right, Logan Stanley had a solid game yesterday. There was I can't think of any glaring errors where you went, oh my goodness, what's he doing? I can't think of any terrible reads and he had the 2 assists. He moved the puck, obviously, and he'll be back in the lineup tomorrow. The Jets will roll the same 6D tomorrow night against the number 1 team in the league, which should be a good test, right? And I still would be shocked if Logan Stanley's in the game 1 playoff lineup. Again, because I think once Neil Pionk returns, it's going to knock Luke Schenn down a spot. And I just don't see a Stanley-Schenn pairing as something you would want to go into a playoff game against. I get that games 1 and 2 are going to be in Winnipeg, so you have last change. But my goodness, Haas, other teams would be trying to exploit the lack of foot speed on a pairing like that. So, we'll see how this plays out. But yeah, it was a good return to the lineup for sure for Logan Stanley, as much as I'm sure some people don't want to hear that.
Yeah, I just when you look at the blue line, I kind of agree with what you say. I mean, I think that Fleury is a nice complement to Luke Schenn. And then it's things are very different when Colin Miller is on that third pairing. And listen, I thought Miller was, he certainly made a statement that, hey, if there's a spot open, I'm ready to go. And he and obviously added to PP2 as well. So I mean, that's something that we'll see, how develops, obviously. But I mean, the one thing I'll say about Schenn, and I mean, it's been really fun to see what he's done, to their ability to clear out the front of the net and whatnot. He never misses an opportunity to lay a hit.
No.
I mean, any time he is around someone, he is making them pay the toll, if you will. And it's a real nice addition on the blue line for a number of reasons. But the increased physicality everywhere with Luke Schenn is something that really stands out when you watch the guy play.
It does. And, Brandon Tanev's kind of right behind him, right? He had that big hit in the first period. I can't remember who he plastered kind of in behind the net along the glass there. But, and you're right about the Kupari, Barron, Tanev line. Like, my goodness, the speed on that line, Huss. I was looking the other day at the edge, like that edge technology that the tracking data that the NHL has. Rasmus Kupari, I think he was second overall in the league. Marty Necas was the only player this year that has a faster individual recorded speed burst than Kupari. But Morgan Barron, I think he's on that list, isn't he, Remis? In terms of
Quinn Hughes actually set the record like yesterday, so he's number 1. And
there's
then
Rasmus number 3.
Necas 2, Rasmus 3, and Morgan Barron was there before, but he may have been pushed down.
He just got bumped out of the top 10, so he might be like 11 or 12. When I looked last week, he was like, I want to say he was 7 or 8. So obviously a couple guys have probably been added.
Here, he's 9 among forwards.
Okay, so you've got, and we don't necessarily think of Morgan Barron as a speed merchant, but I remember when the Jets did their skills competition the last time around, I believe Morgan Barron won the fastest skater competition. I think Kupari might have been hurt last year, but in any event, he is one of the faster Jets. And now you have Brandon Tanev, who also, has speed to burn. Like that line could cause a lot of fits for sure. And I really like the Alex Iafallo promotion. I mean, I've loved everything about Iafallo's game. And you look now how the top 9 is configured with Vilardi out. You've got Scheifele and Connor. We know what they do. Iafallo is going to go dig pucks out of the corner. He's going to go to the net. You've got now Niederreiter playing with Nemestikov and Perfetti. So again, Nemestikov's the center. He's not afraid to go to the hard areas, but now Niederreiter will do that as well in spades, and Perfetti's a really smart player. And then you've got Lowry and Appleton to do a lot of grunt work, while Ehlers, has room to kind of dazzle. So Scott Arniel talked post-game yesterday about wanting to see what that looked like. And we're going to see it now with Vilardi out of the lineup, and basically a reconfigure, like all 3 lines are changing now because of one injury. And normally that's something maybe you wouldn't want to do, but I think this is the time to do it. And so we'll have a few games at the very least, whether this is how it stays or there's more experimentation. Again, I think this could be a positive for the Jets if you're looking big picture. Now, if you're looking small picture, depending on what happens in the Dallas Stars game tonight, like there's a chance that you're going to start hearing footsteps here, right? Dallas is 8 points behind. They have 2 games in hand. They'll play one of them tonight. And they still have that one head-to-head game, which if you're the Jets, you're hoping that by the time you get to Texas on April 10th, I think it is, that game means nothing. if you're the Stars, you're hoping that that game potentially means everything. And although, let me say this, Huss, like we all talk about the importance of finishing first because you avoid Colorado, and I still think that's very important. Does anyone want to play the St. Louis Blues right now? 12-2-2 since the Four Nations, the best team in the league. 2019 vibes in a way. Now, the hole they had to dig themselves out of this year wasn't nearly as big, but just like 2019, a coaching change mid-season. They are now on a tremendous run, and they got Jordan Binnington, who just helped win gold for Canada at the Four Nations. Like, I don't know. It's starting to feel a little bit like pick your poison if you're like the Jets, right?
Well, listen, who wants to play the Blues? Count me in there. I want to play the Blues because that means you're not playing Dallas or Colorado. And that, again, winning the Central, having the 1 seed. I mean, anyone that thinks that it's just going to be a bye to the second round is fooling themselves.
Yeah.
Whoever comes out of this playoff race is going to have a lot of momentum, the fact that they were able to earn it. But, I mean, the Jets, assuming that they're able to finish the job in the Central Division, listen, they've got their own demons to worry about from other playoffs. They have to just go in there being the team that has been right at the top of the league standings all year long. I don't think worry as much about what the opponent is, but do their thing. And, that you would think that would be enough to move on. But as I say, anything can happen in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Hell, anything can happen in the regular season, like we saw yesterday against Buffalo.
Indeed. I'm all being a writer, a journalist. I'm all for finding the best storylines. And Huss, let me just say, playing St. Louis in round 1 would be a terrific storyline because it could be the start of what would have the potential to be a franchise exorcism. If you're the Jets, imagine this scenario. Round 1, you face the team that ended your season in 2019. Let's say you get by them. Round 2, there's the Colorado Avalanche, the team that ended your season last year. Let's say you get by them. Imagine a scenario where round 3, it's the Vegas Golden Knights, the team that ended your season in 2018 and in 2023. And if you really want to take this one step further for the ultimate fun, how about round 4, Stanley Cup final, and the final boss?
Give us the Panthers.
In Paul Maurice, a.k.a. the final boss. I mean, that would be like you could do a documentary series on what a playoff run with those 4 opponents, St. Louis, Colorado, Vegas, and Florida. That would be facing like all of the ghosts, all of the demons from your past. Hey, from a storyline perspective, I don't think you could beat that.
Listen, I'm here for it. If you can will this into happening, Mike, I mean, let's go. I'm here for 4 rounds of the playoffs. As we said, right now, I mean, just looking, let's pull up the standings right now in the West for that wild card. The Blues now have 1 point on Vancouver, so they've got 77. They've got 4 on Calgary, but Calgary has 3 games in hand. They have 5 points on the Vancouver Canucks. The Canucks have 2 games in hand. And Mike, I don't know if you saw on Saturday afternoon that Vancouver Ranger game.
I did.
But I mean, we talk about yesterday and the amount of shots that the Jets had compared to Buffalo. Vancouver outshot the Rangers 39-12.
I think it ended up being 40. They added one more after the game.
Oh, they gave them the one more afterwards just for good measure.
Extra salt in the wound, yeah.
And the funny thing is, a lot of people were on Comrie after the game yesterday. I mean, that was Kevin Lankinen, who in a lot of ways sort of saved the Vancouver Canucks season and just wasn't able to make the save that they needed to at least get that thing to overtime. It was a wild third period. But again, the Rangers basically scored on every chance that they had. And other than that, and Paterson was out. I continue to be amazed by Quinn Hughes the more I watch him. The third period of that game, he would get the puck, he would bring it in, he would skate around, he'd rip it at the net. They were trying to get dirty goals. I mean, he completely commands the game when he is out there on the ice, especially when he's got it on his stick. And, if he can get a little bit of help, maybe this team can sort of get into it. But to your point, St. Louis right now, with this run that they're on, 8-1-1 in their last 10, 6 straight wins, has put a little bit of a gap between Calgary and Vancouver. And now the onus is on those two teams to win their games in hand, much like we talked about Dallas, if they want to close the gap. Only Vancouver's in action tonight. They're taking on the Devils. And just while we talk about the Stars for a minute, just back to them and the games they have in hand, depending on what happens tomorrow night, we could be in a very different situation by the time the New Jersey Devils come to town on Friday, Mike, because the Stars are at home to the Wild tonight and then go to Alberta and go back-to-back against the Oilers, potentially still without Draisaitl and McDavid on Wednesday.
Guaranteed without them.
That's been
confirmed today. They will not play this week.
All right, that's not good. And then, of course, the Calgary Flames. And listen, credit to Calgary. They have been finding a way to get to OT, to grab 2 points. And they'll be a very, very desperate team. But I would suggest that the Dallas Stars are certainly going to Edmonton at a good time, considering what's on the table for them right now as they try and track down Winnipeg.
Well, to your point, Huss, so the Stars, if we're looking ahead to Friday, the Stars have 3 games, the Jets have 1. So there's their 2 games in hand. When we get to Friday morning, Jets and Stars will be an even number of games played. And the lead for Winnipeg could be anywhere from 10 points to 2, depending on how tomorrow plays out for the Jets and how these next 3 games in 4 days play out for the Stars. So you talk about a big week, my goodness. Because the Jets will get to Friday and they'll have 10 games left. So both teams will have 10. So you're either talking as much as a 10-point lead with both teams having 10 left, which would kind of be insurmountable, or a 2-point lead with both teams having 10. Those are the extremes. And 1 head-to-head game remaining. So, yeah, that is a monster week for both teams. The Jets only have 1 game where they can go out and do something about it. And then they'll be scoreboard watching tonight. As you mentioned, the Stars facing the Wild. And then those 2 big games in Alberta, which, yes, they don't have Draisaitl and McDavid. The Oilers, though, they're still fighting. They're still fighting for one of first, second, or third in their division. And, of course, the Flames, they're fighting tooth and nail to try and not let the Blues get too far ahead of them. So, yeah, it's a very interesting week. And the mood around here could be, well, we're not sure what it's going to look like in a few days from now, but there's some real interesting possibilities on the table.
Well, listen, and the only thing the Jets can do is take care of their own business. But that business tomorrow is against the Washington Capitals. And, in some ways, maybe the loss to Buffalo, I don't want to say a bit of a wake-up call, but, I think that they'll be very, very in tune with what happens the rest of this week, scoreboard watching. But the one thing they can do is go out and get 2 points tomorrow night against the Washington Capitals. And, again, things are going to look a little different. You're not going to have Vilardi. You're already missing Pionk. But it is time, and particularly with these new look lines, to maybe get off to a nice start and do what they did to Washington in that thriller a few weeks ago when these teams played in D.C. That was one of the games of the year, Mike, and maybe we shouldn't be surprised considering what these teams have done through the first 70-odd games.
Now, one little note about the Capitals, they could be coming in a little wounded as well. I don't know if you saw this, Huss. Jacob Chychrun has been dynamic for the Caps on the back end. He suffered a skate cut. It was a really scary incident. Skate cut to the wrist in their game the other day on Saturday. Now, he actually returned to the game, but I see that Spencer Carberry said today that it's a significant injury that could have been a lot worse, and they're not sure about his status. Now, I don't know if this is a situation where, as it started to scab up or whatever, that there's some issues. But so it's not clear if Chychrun will be in the lineup tomorrow, which would be a big loss on their back end against a Jets team that as we said, they're already missing Neil Pionk and now Gabe Vilardi as well. So both teams may not be quite at 100%. I guess the one thing, for the Capitals, like, it's interesting to watch how they go about things. We talk about the Jets, trying to guard against just going through the motions or putting it on cruise control, because let's face it, they've kind of been in a pretty comfortable spot for a while. The Capitals are even in a more comfortable spot. Their lead in the division is even bigger than Winnipeg's. And their lead in the conference in the Eastern Conference is bigger. Like they kind of have number one seed in the East and home ice advantage for the first 3 rounds. Like, that's been sewn up for a while. And they also have the Alexander Ovechkin. I don't know if it's a distraction, but it's certainly a storyline that is following the team around. So I'm curious to see now that they just keep on trucking. Like, the Capitals don't seem to be missing a beat. They've had some real impressive wins. They can score like crazy. So yeah, I'm curious to see what they look like coming in. They may want to pay the Jets back for Winnipeg going into their building earlier this year and coming away with a victory. So it should be a great game no matter what.
Well, they'll get their big horse back in net tomorrow. Connor Hellebuck is expected to start.
Yes.
And we'll see if he can put up a goose egg on one Mr. Ovechkin as he looks to track down Wayne Gretzky. Just quickly, what was the vibe like around practice today? I mean, it was a disappointing loss yesterday. The guys weren't pleased with the results, certainly. Was it just business as usual today, or did it seem like they were pretty focused on what's coming up tomorrow?
I'd be lying to you if I gave you the vibe, because I was actually off today, believe it or not. After putting in, Kenny's back from his vacation. He was down at the rink today. I did not go down to practice today. I was following from a distance. Had worked a dozen straight, so today was a day off for me. But I mean, just even in the room yesterday after the game, which I was, like, I think the Jets were still encouraged by what they were able to generate offensively in terms of chances. Obviously, they'd like a little more finish, but I think they like where their offensive game was at. They certainly didn't like some of their defensive breakdowns that obviously led to Buffalo really pouncing on them, and specifically that breakdown on the power play. Like, there was a situation. I think all of us in the building, like, you almost felt like it was inevitable the Jets were going to score on that power play and tie the game, right? They had all the momentum. Ehlers had just scored to bring them back to within one. And then to have that go the other way, like, that was a bit of a backbreaker. And I think the Jets, again, their special teams, they need to clean that up. And that's something that once they get to the playoffs, we know how important it's going to be. And one thing we learned last year is what you're doing in the regular season and even how you end the regular season doesn't necessarily reflect on how you are in the playoffs. Look at the Edmonton Oilers. Their penalty kill last year was nothing to write home about in the regular season. And then they went on like a historic run in the playoffs. And that's what can happen. Smaller sample size. I think if you're the Jets, both the penalty kill, which has been a little leaky lately, and the power play, which has been ice cold, 2 for 19. I crunched the numbers the other day, Huss. Like, it's not just these last 6 or 7 games. It's actually since the Four Nations. The Jets are like 17 point something %. And they're like 24th or 25th overall in the league since the break. And they're still number one barely in the league on the power play, but that's because they were so far ahead of everyone else. They need to start getting that back. And obviously now not having Gabe Vilardi around for week to week, that's not going to help, because he's a guy that really makes that power play goal. But as I said earlier, I think he's been fighting something for a while. And I don't think we've been seeing the best version of Gabe Vilardi anyways. So the blessing in disguise here is that he can heal up. And if you're the Jets, you hope that he can come back just before the season ends, get it maybe a couple games in to get his back up to speed, and then really take off once the playoffs start.
Mike, always great to have you on the program. Enjoy the week. Will you be? I see Les is going to the Heart concert tonight. Are you going to be at the Canada Life Center for the Wilson ladies?
I will not. I've got a big baseball draft, fantasy baseball draft.
Oh, yes.
Tonight, Huss. That I've been in the league 7 years. There's 14 of us, and I've won it 3 times. So
Dynasty.
Yeah, exactly. So no, got that on. But I'll be wishing all the folks who are attending Hart the best of time. I'm sure it'll be a great evening.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, pal, thanks for doing this. Enjoy the rest of the day off. Good luck in your draft tonight. Get back to your draft prep.
You bet. Thanks. Take care.
All right, there's Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press. John Hodge is going to jump on with us in about 20 or 10 minutes or so. We do have some Scott Arniel, which we will play for you right away. I do want to get to the why not question of the day, though. And I mean, this is, and I know this has sort of been the conversation all day long today on the chat, but just how do you feel coming out of yesterday's game? Was this sort of a one-off game that, happens once or twice a year that you realize you should have won, but you haven't? Or, like, I know we've heard from some people maybe worried about signs of a larger erosion from the standard of play the Winnipeg Jets had earlier this year. Let us know for the why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray in the chat right now. All right, John Hodge is coming up. Before we go bring in John, let's hear from Scott Arniel, who spoke after practice. And first things first, we've been talking about it all show. This is what the coach had to say about Gabe Vilardi being out.
Maybe just from a housekeeping point of view, what can you tell us about Gabe?
He'll be week to week, upper body injury, and it's not his ear. So, he's out for a bit.
All right, so short and sweet from the coach. Week to week, don't expect Gabe tomorrow. Don't expect Gabe on Friday. Probably includes the afternoon game next Sunday against the Vancouver Canucks. Arniel just spoke about the disappointment for Gabe not being able to play 82 games this year after being pretty much healthy all season.
Oh, it's really disappointing. It's actually what we talked about. We're so upset about last night when we found out he's done such a fantastic job of his summer training to do some specific things so that he can, hope to have an 82 game schedule, 82 game season. His training, in season training, kind of looking after himself, doing all the right things to get him here. And it really is the kind of what happened. You guys can go find it yourself, but it was kind of a little bit of a freak situation, and it is what it is. But really disappointing that he couldn't, because I really felt that this was a year that he might be able to get 82 in.
Will you be able to project his playoff readiness at this point, Scott?
We'll just go on week to week here for now. We'll just wait and see.
All right, so nothing more beyond week to week from the head coach of the Winnipeg Jets on Gabriel Vilardi. Of course, this begs the question: who's going to be replacing Vilardi on line number 1? Here's what the coach had to say on that.
Like today, we'll start with Al. Until we play the games. I mean, we'll see. We'll go into it tomorrow with Al, and we start from there. Al's been there before. Maybe not so much this year, but Al's been there before. We'll start that way and kind of move forward. We'll go to game, see how it goes tomorrow night.
What will you miss most with Gabe being out, Scott?
His puck possession skills, his ability to be around the net, obviously the power play, his net front presence. But just, those guys had such chemistry, just the way. And that's probably why I'm kind of looking at Al, who's kind of a, sort of a meat and potato guy, good in the corners, good at the net front. I think that, the chemistry that, KC, Scheif, and Gabe have had, just kind of, being on the same page every time they get into that offensive zone. And so hopefully that, like I mentioned, that Al jumps in there and can help just pick that up a little bit.
All right, now without Gabe on the top line, Alex Iafallo moves in. What about the power play? Murad asked Coach Arniel on how that PP1 unit will look with Vilardi out week to week.
What happens on the power play in this spot?
Al.
And so that's a different sort of skill set. Vilardi obviously so.
Well, it's not the right shot. There. It's not the right shot, but it is. Al's good around the net front too, and we're gonna have to tinker a little bit here on how we do some things, and where Scheif and Gabe are the righties. Now we got the lefties, but we can still do some of the things off the other side just as well. So for tomorrow, it'll be the look that we'll have.
And Appleton into Al's spot in the second unit, like you saw.
Yeah.
All right, so Iafallo moving from PP2 to PP1, and it sounds like Appleton's going to get a run on PP2 when they do get out there. Listen, coming out of the game yesterday, the coach mentioned that, overall tons of scoring chances, just weren't able to convert, but there were some breakdowns that led to goals the other way. Here's the coach on what they needed to do to prevent the breakdowns that occurred yesterday afternoon that ended up contributing to that loss to Buffalo.
The ultimate trap game, I think we had all the shot attempts and scoring chances. I think the scoring chances were 14-5, 5-on-5. And you know what? We made a mistake on a rush goal. We made a mistake on a face-off, gave up a shorty, then right at the end of a penalty kill with 4 seconds left. So they were all kind of little situational things that happened that those are the things you try to mentally stay sharp at. We've always been good with our details. Our emphasis on defense first, defending, doing those things usually leads to a lot of offense. But we did make some mistakes last night and ended up in our net. So, same thing with Washington. It's going to happen fast here. We go right back into them. Got to be good with our details, good with our structure, and because they can score goals, and so we have to make sure that we make them play in their end a lot more than we're in our end.
All right, so there's a little bit of an update on the lines, the infirmary for the Winnipeg Jets, and thoughts on yesterday. But, of course, big game tomorrow against the Washington Capitals. These teams have played once earlier this year. It was a thriller. The Jets won in extra time. Here's what Arniel had to say about tomorrow's visitors, the Washington Capitals.
Yeah, you knew that it was going to be a huge focus all year long, and I know that Spencer and his coaching staff, they've talked to their group about it right from the very beginning, and the thing about it that they've done it. They've won a lot of hockey games, and Ovi's continue to score, and I think that Ovi's playing. It isn't just about scoring goals; he's playing the right way too, and kind of like 18 when they won the cup there, he was a big part of playing that way, and. They're a deep team. They're a big team, and they're getting a lot of contributions from a lot of people in that lineup. Some young guys have really stepped forward, and obviously having Ovi out there, and if it doesn't take him much if he gets that puck on his stick. He makes teams pay.
All right, now of course, all eyes will be on 8 tomorrow. Alex Ovechkin, who is 6 back of tying Gretzky's record, 7 to break it. Arnie's seen a lot of Ovi over the years. Just what he had to say about the great 8.
The biggest thing, because I got to work there and be around him, is that he's moving a lot more. He doesn't just stay in his office, and I think that's the thing is that if you go and actually look at a lot of his goals this year, there's a lot of goals scored in places other than just at the top of the circle, and he has ability to get down to that back post. He'll tip pucks. He goes into those areas. So his him being a threat first and foremost as a one-timer, you obviously got to make sure if he's sitting up top at the top of the circle. But once he starts to move, you got to they have other weapons that you got to make sure that you're checking each guy off. And he's a guy that, like I said, you got to be close to him because it doesn't take much to come off that stick fast.
They're coming off their championship season. When you came, what did you take away from that time with him? Maybe something you didn't know about the player. You hear about things from afar.
A lot of them, in the Rangers there, we saw an awful lot of them. The biggest thing is that just how they all kind of bought into defending and how they played it without the puck. They had extremely dangerous power play, but their 5-on-5 game really kind of like what's going on this year from last year where they squeaked in and had the tough goals against last year. This year they've turned that around night and day, and I think that's kind of the same thing that you saw back then. It's just their sort of commitment to playing without the puck has been a lot better.
So there is the coach. We might have a little Josh Morrissey before the end of the program. But John Hodge is going to join us in just a couple of minutes. Let me quickly get to fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market. Fans First has no added fees, no fees at all. Once you see what you see on the site is what you pay, which is a stark contrast to most other ticketing sites. And from a seller's perspective, great customer service and quick payment the very next business day after each and every game. You can find out more today at fansfirst.ca. Lots of talk about the game last night. Mary Jane says our team will be fine. Cobry's doing a great job. Boys were off and not focused yesterday. Lots of worry about the injuries, though. Comet, these late season injuries are killer. Big Al, Winnipeg, Vilardi out, Pionk out. No more injuries, please. And then Phyllis mentioning about Perfetti going to be in with Nino going as well. And Travis Lavely, bring in Gus. Parker Ford. Ford looks solid. Unfortunately, Parker Ford's on the IR. Both he and Nikita Chibrikov not options for the Winnipeg Jets. I'd imagine if there's a call-up, it'll most likely be Brad Lambert. And then Dominic Toninato as well, potentially Axel Janssen-Fjallby, Jared Anderson-Dolan, the most likely guys to come up from the Moose. Fan feedback, keep it coming. Brought to you by Fans First, by fans, for fans, no fees. We'll have John coming up right away. Looking ahead to the CFL draft and the upcoming CFL season. Hey, if you're a Bomber fan and can't wait to get going on the year, you might want to check out the new Bomber merch that's come into Royal Sports. I know there's a lot of hype on the upcoming Stanley Cup playoffs, and the Whites are all out there at Royal with all the jerseys to get you ready for your playoff outfit, but the Bombers are coming as well. Some great exclusives from New Era available right now at Royal Sports for you Bomber fans. And again, as I mentioned, Jet fans already getting ready for the playoffs with a trip to Royal Sports where they have everything Jets waiting for you. In addition, spring is here. Incredible bike section at the back. If you're looking to get onto two wheels, make sure to check out Royal Sports for that, as well as all your favorite spring sports equipment coming in by the day. And don't forget all that cool stuff on the King's Skate, Snow, and Surf side. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway, and a great time to give them a follow on Instagram as well. As the new spring stock comes in, you'll have the latest merchandise drops and sale information there. And of course, our friends at Boston Pizza. Man, we had a great time last Thursday with all of you that came out for the WST Wash Party along with Little Brown Jug. Thanks again to the great staff at BP Garden City. Tomorrow night, full house. If you don't have a ticket for the game in downtown, the next best place to be is your local Boston Pizza. With the game on the big screen, pick a player contest where you can spin the wheel. And there we are. We've got a good little video of our good time there with our friends at Little Brown Jug. Anyways, it was an absolute blast. And next best place to be other than the rink is your is your local Boston Pizza. I got the rear naked choke in on Spency there for wearing the Oiler jersey.
Little Brown Jug, they just put out this video on Instagram Reel. Check it out if you haven't. And yeah, it shows the wheel, the pizza, you leading the trivia, you and Connor having a lively conversation. But let me just pause it on Spency showed up in an Oilers jersey. You need to put the choke on him. It's too good.
Oh, that was good. What a good time. Thanks again for everyone that came out. Hey, by the way, speaking of Little Brown Jug, let's give a cheers to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, and then bring in John Hodge from 3 Down Nation.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
Let's bring in John Hodge to join us on the program. John, how you been keeping? You ready for some football or what? It seems like this offseason has been seems longer than a lot of others, even though the Bombers played the same length. The Grey Cup's been around, just been kind of quiet lately, really around the league, but especially here in Winnipeg.
Yeah, I'm excited, Huss. I always am for some football, especially when it's 3 down football, especially when it's CFL. So, yeah, it was great having the opportunity to go to the Combine the last number of days in Regina and back home now, of course. But always nice to see people from around the league. And the thing that I like most about the March Combine is that everybody, and I do mean everybody, all the coaches, all the personnel people, they're all in good moods, Huss. They all are living life, feeling joy, which is, of course, not the case once the season gets underway and there's stressors and there's injuries and there's losses and there's controversy. So in March, everyone's feeling good. Everyone's feeling grand. Lovely to chat with them.
Hey, before we dive into your best and worst and everything interesting from the Combine, one thing that I thought we'd maybe be hearing a little bit more about is who's going to be running the show for the Canadian Football League after Randy Ambrosie. What are you hearing about a commissioner search and potential candidates for the job?
I believe the next commissioner of the CFL has been chosen.
Do we know who
I don't know who it is. I don't know who it is. The word on the street is they have found the candidate, and we're working towards learning who that is and learning what it's about. There's been a lot of conversation about, where the next commissioner is supposed to take this league, or should they try to go bigger than Randy Ambrosie, right? My colleague Justin Dunk wrote a great column at 3 Down Nation saying, hey, if the league really wants to get serious and bring in somebody who's going to elevate things, change things, revolutionize things, they might need to spend more than the, $700,000, $800,000 odd dollars that Randy Ambrosie was making each year. My counterpoint is, well, and if the league's just going to hire someone to be, for lack of a better term, punching bag for the board of governors, then why are they spending that amount of money? It would be much better to, if you're just going to have a figurehead, hire someone at a lower dollar rate and use some of that money to maybe surround that person with a few more people who can help them out along the way. But I do believe that the next commissioner of the CFL, I don't know if it's final, like done, but I believe that person has by and large been chosen, and it is in the negotiating stage. But I do not know the identity of that person as of now.
Any idea what they're looking at for a time frame to announce and get this guy on the job? And do we have any idea about the transition? I mean, as soon as they name that guy, is Ambrosie done, or will they work together for a while? I mean, I guess a lot depends on what the guy's background is and how familiar he is with the entire Canadian Football League business.
Well, guy or gal at this point, we don't know yet, Hus. We don't know. We don't want to make assumptions.
That's on me.
But when it comes to the transition, I mean, I'm speculating. Randy has been open since before Grey Cup, saying, I'm happy to stay on the job as long as they want. If they want a period where they work together, it seems like Randy would be open to that. But one would think they want this done before the season gets underway, right? I mean, the CFLPA, for instance, has a new president. They announced David Mackey. Last month, David Mackey is having his virtual introductory press conference on Thursday. He was at the CFL Combine, London, Ontario native. He's actually from Jackson Point, but now lives in London, Ontario after playing for the BC Lions for 6 seasons at fullback, also performed their short yardage duties in 2024. It would make a lot of sense, I think, for the CFL to also have their new leadership in place by the time training camps open in May. But again, that is speculation on my point.
So let's get to the Combine. Fill us in. You've got a big piece, 11 fun facts from the 2025 CFL Combine. Maybe the 12th would be that everyone was just in a good mood and, actually pleasant to deal with and in good spirits. But a big opportunity for so many young men that are looking to be CFL players with a limited chance to show what they can do under these controlled environment.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think this is arguably the best combine I've been at in terms of talent. I've been at all the combines since 2017. 2019 was a strong one, but I think that ultimately, when you look across the board at a lot of the times that were run, you had a couple of offensive linemen running almost 5 flat. And I know that, offensive linemen running the 40-yard dash is this or that, but when you're a 300-pound person who can run essentially a 5-second 40-yard dash, that's pretty special. And then when you look at the fastest times, you had Ope Oshanubi, running back out of the University of Alberta, who actually improved on his time from the Invitational Combine, running 4.41 at 223 pounds. That's pretty special. There were a ton of other players at the 4.52 mark and below. One of them was Ethan Jordan, star receiver out of Wilfrid Laurier. I think a lot of people looked at him as a guy who maybe his production came largely as a result of playing on the same offense as Taylor Elgersma, quarterback prospect who was at the Senior Bowl, could get an NFL look. Well, he ran a 4.44, and not only that, but he weighed in significantly heavier than he was listed with the Golden Hawks last season. He was listed at 165. which is awfully small. Well, at the combine, he was 177. Not a big-bodied receiver. He never will be. But 177, there's lots of players in the CFL, lots of good receivers who are in and around that weight and who don't run 4.44. So I think that all the players in attendance should be commended. These are the best testing times we've seen in a long time. And a lot of the scouts, talent evaluators, personnel people I spoke to were very pleased with a lot of what they saw on display in Regina.
You know, there's a bunch of really good stuff in this piece at 3 Down. So I'll direct people to go in and kind of check in as John gets under the hood of a bunch of the young guys that are looking for spots. But I had to laugh and get you to tell the story of why Eric Anderson spells his name with a K.
So I spoke to Eric Anderson actually on the phone on my way to Regina, and big-bodied, 6'5", 6'6", 318-pound offensive lineman out of Western University. His last name is spelled E-N at the end, Anderson. He's got a K with his first name, and that to me feels kind of Nordic, kind of dramatic. So I was just, asking, where's that from? And he said, well, my dad is Danish. That's where the spelling of Anderson comes from. But he said, the spelling of my first name has nothing to do with that. I said, well, what's the deal? And he said, well, my mom wanted to name me Eric, but my dad was a big Leafs fan and had always hated Eric Lindros, right? Who for many years tormented the Leafs with the Philadelphia Flyers, then went to the Rangers. I think he ended up playing a season for the Leafs after that.
Yeah, right at the end.
Exactly. That was after Anderson was born. So the compromise they came to was they would name their son Anderson, but they would spell it with a K instead of a C, because Dad just couldn't stomach the idea that Eric Anderson would have the exact same name as his most hated hockey players. So those are the types of fun facts. I mean, I've yet to watch the film from the combine. I shot a bunch of stuff myself. I'm hoping to get some of the official CFL stuff and obviously check in with a lot of scouts. So the real nuts and bolts of the event will be a kind of a month-long undertaking ahead of the CFL draft on April 29th. But I know a lot of fans aren't necessarily super interested in the minutia of the offensive lineman who's going to go round 4 versus round 6. The fun facts are where a lot of fans love it. So that's kind of why I clued into that early on for our draft coverage at 3 Down Nation.
Hey, just how many players, or draft prospects were out and involved in this combine? How does that maybe compare to previous ones? And any local guys, Bison products or guys from around here that were taking part?
Yeah, so this year was about 75. The number has developed over time a little bit. The first few years of the global program, for instance, they brought in a lot of global players. This year, I think there was 3. So the vast majority were Canadian prospects. Should be noted that about 15 guys who would have attended this event, or at least would have garnered invitations, did not choose to come. They did the pro days, those types of things. So the draft has essentially 70 picks. 15 guys didn't come, 75 did. So if you look at that as kind of a big board of 90 players, there are some guys, by the way, who were at the Invitational in Waterloo a few weeks ago who I think will get drafted. Some of the guys who went to the National won't get drafted. But it's a big pool of players. In terms of the locals, Matt Stockman was their guard for the Manitoba Bisons. Was a little heavy. He was 20 pounds heavier than any other offensive lineman there, coming in the mid 330s. I know some scouts would like him to cut back a little bit, but he had a decent showing. It's not a strong offensive line class overall. I think that'll help Matt Stockman's stock. Braden Stubbs was there, running back for the Manitoba Bisons. And there's a couple of Winnipeggers. One was unable to attend. Gavin Cokes out of UBC, I believe, is from Winnipeg. He had a broken foot. He wasn't able to come. I know the one that everybody's looking at, the Bison that everybody's looking at, is a really intriguing player in Jackson Tuchinski, who is quarterback, right? Canada West MVP reigning, but was a receiver at this event as he looks to potentially make the transition at the professional level. And I've watched a ton of Jackson Tuchinski play.
Incredible athlete. Two-sport athlete at the U of M.
Exactly. Played a lot of basketball. 6'4", right? Over 200 pounds. Ran a 4.75 at the Invitational. Ran a 4.8 at the National. 4.8 is not a great number, but I don't think it's disqualifying in the CFL for a receiver. It's it's pushing that boundary a little bit, but this is a guy who's also barely played the receiver spot, and I think could potentially develop over time. My thing that I'm most curious about, Huss, is he has another year of eligibility left. If he were to go back to the Bisons, and that might be the most natural place for him, does he play receiver? Because on the one hand, if he wants to take that next step in his professional career and try to become the next Brad Sinopoli, let's say, an excellent U Sports quarterback who transitions to receiver at the CFL level, kind of a big-bodied slot type, well, he needs to get those reps. But if you're the Manitoba Bisons, especially with Stan Pierre going into his first year as head coach, you're kind of going, well, we're not. You're our best player. Like why would we want to take you out from under center and put you out of position where we've already got other guys? So that's something that's going to be really interesting to keep tabs on. If in fact Achinski does go back to school, where will the Bisons slot him in? Because there's a couple of spots where he could potentially wind up.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I know Zach Wynn, who's one of the receivers on the Bisons, was saying that this is a huge year for Manitoba coming up. Obviously, it being Stan's first year with the team, but you also have sort of a class of players that have, as happens in youth sports, kind of learn the ropes the first couple of years, come up, had a strong season last year. But the biggest key is the QB. And they've got one more year with Jackson Dushinsky. And I can assure you that talking to players on the team, the expectation is that he will be QB1, not a member of the wide receivers room when things get going. John Hodge is with us from 3 Down Nation. Just quickly, just before we go, I wanted to ask you about Brandon Alexander and what's next for him.
Well, he's a free agent right now, right? I mean, he's 31 years old. He's a hard-hitting safety. Those guys typically have hard time as Americans finding work in the CFL, right? And I don't think that Brandon Alexander's career is over, but I'm not shocked that he's still on the open market. I think he will end up at a team that needs a veteran presence. It could even be Winnipeg. You never know, right? If injuries pile up, he's obviously not in the plans right now, but anything can change come the regular season, right? If 2, 3, 4 DBs go down on the same team, I could see a club looking at Brandon Alexander as a safety, as a guy who's played a little bit of Sam, a spot where there's not a lot of experience out there on the open market. I don't think Brandon Alexander runs as well as he once did. I think his range has slowed down a little bit. That being said, he's made it very clear that he does want to continue playing. He has bid farewell to Winnipeg, but you never know, Huss. This is the CFL, and the longer that I cover this league, the more I know to never, ever, ever be surprised or rule anything out. So, if Michael Griffin is penciled in at the starting safety spot in Winnipeg, I'm not saying that he is or isn't, but hypothetically, if he were, well, if he goes down in camp and they can't find a rookie or someone else to replace him, then who's to say? Brandon Alexander couldn't come back. We'll have to wait and see.
John, always great having you on the program. I enjoyed the mock draft. I know you'll be cranking out more of those as we get closer to draft day at the end of next month. In the meantime, folks, check out all of John's work as well as the rest of the 3 Down Nation team over at 3downnation.com. John, thanks for doing this, pal. You have a great one.
Thanks for having me, Huss. Anytime.
Beauty. All right, there's John Hodge. Now, there's a couple things that Remis and I have to get to coming out of the weekend. I do have to get to the Coolbet lines, but with the late practice today, we have just got a little bit of Josh Morrissey. So, Morrissey talked about a bunch of things, and of course, this upcoming game, but also as one of the leaders on the team, just talked about these takeaways from the disappointing result yesterday against the Sabres.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you look at the game, they had some great goaltending. We generated a ton of chances. I thought carried most of the play, but obviously, we're still able to put up, the 3 goals, and it wasn't so much what we gave up, but what we got, but what we gave up rather. And I think, we didn't give up a ton, but what we did, there was some quality there and some areas we can clean up, and a little bit of emphasis that, you might run into a game like that down the line in the playoffs where a goaltender's playing amazing and you might be carrying the play, and you can't have lapse in focus for, a shift here, a shift there, and give something up where even though you're carrying the play, now you find yourself behind on on the scoreboard. So I think that was probably what we took from that game, was just, we might, those nights you just can't afford to have lapses when there's a goalie playing like that.
All right, so there's Josh Morrissey on yesterday's loss to Buffalo. Now it's on to Washington. Battle of the top two teams in the NHL standings. First in the East, first in the West. And Morrissey looked back at the last game between these two clubs earlier this season, which was an absolute thriller.
Yeah, obviously it was an exciting game. Both teams I think, pride themselves on their defensive game. And, there's a lot of goals, a lot of offense in that one. So, who knows if we'll see the fireworks again or more of a true to form matchup. But, I think that just goes to show why both teams are near the top of the standings. You can play multiple styles of game. Obviously, you have the offense and the defense and goaltending and special teams. So I'm excited to, have another match with those guys.
Tomorrow without Gabe Vilardi. If you popped in late, he is out week to week. As per head coach Scott Arniel, Alex Iafallo moving up to line number 1 and into Gabe's spot on the power play. Listen, Washington has been a great story this year. And, of course, Ovechkin's chase has been at the, we've all been talking about that. But in the meantime, the Washington Capitals are the number 1 team in the league coming in. Morrissey just talked about the season that Washington's having and, of course, the chase of Ovi.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a real point of energy for him, right? Ovi's going to break the goal record, and how can that not be an exciting time to be, a part of that team? So I don't think I bet you it's not a distraction at all. I'd assume it's actually a point of energy for them. So, thankfully, we'll do our best not to let them get that record tomorrow. But, obviously they're having a very impressive season, and Ovi as well is having an amazing year.
And, of course, Connor Hellebuck will be going up against Alex Ovechkin. Some big moves in the Hart Trophy odds. We'll get to those with the Coolbet segment in a minute. But one more from Morrissey. Looking ahead to this big tilt tomorrow, leaning on some really strong performances they've had at home in some of their biggest games, like the win against Dallas recently and that one against Florida earlier this season.
Well, obviously, you know who you're playing against. I think first and foremost, that, when you're playing the top teams, if you come out there and you're not on your game, they'll make you pay. And I also think that more than that, our team's got a lot of pride. We're trying to compete with the best teams in the league. We want to prove that we're, in that group. And, so those games are exciting. They're exciting to play. And I think it brings out the best in our guys.
Being able to find that at those times, do you feel that that's one of these transferable to the playoff type skills?
Yeah, I think, those big games, obviously, if they're tight or different things like that, I would say every game there's a chance to learn, going for the playoffs. Those games against big teams, maybe they make you pay a little bit more on mistakes, or, there's certain things you can learn, but even a game like yesterday, there's things we can, adapt and learn from going to the playoffs. But it is, when you play those top teams, you envision those are teams you might have to go through if you want to get to, the pinnacle of what we're trying to achieve. So it's fun to get those big matchups during the year and, test yourselves against the other best teams.
All right, so there's Josh Morrissey. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock, Canada Life Center. Jets Caps will be all over it tomorrow with a game day edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk. We're going to get to the Coolbet lines right now. I did want to make a point of congratulating the Brandon Bobcats, who pulled off an incredible run to a national championship. The first national championship Brandon has won in any sport since 1996, I believe. It was an 8-team tournament. They were the 8th seed. They started it off by stunning the number 1 ranked Winnipeg Westmen in the first round, and then continued with 2 more huge wins. And the scenes in Brandon yesterday at the gym with the home team winning a national championship were, well, to be honest, it kind of reminded me of what was happening with the women at the U of M a week or two ago. We had Ken Bentley on. We've talked a little volleyball over this last couple of weeks with the Nationals, both in men's and women's here. For Manitoba teams to win both championships speaks very, very highly of where the sport is right now here in the province. So congratulations to Brandon. And shout out to the Westmen. I mean, as disappointed as they were with that loss that knocked them out of medal contention, they rallied with 2 wins to win 5th place. And obviously Chris Voth, who was the coach of the year for U Sports, and the Westmen disappointed that they weren't able to win the national championship. But a great season nonetheless. But huge congrats to Brandon. What a story that was, with the home team shocking everybody and becoming national champions. All right, let's get over to the Coolbet lines tonight, because we've got 4 games in the NHL. There's going to be a lot of scoreboard watching this week, because when the Jets don't play, the Dallas Stars do. We rolled that out. The Dallas Stars beginning 3 games in 4 nights. Tonight in Minnesota, tonight at home to Minnesota, I should say. They're a -213 favorite. And then they travel to Edmonton and Calgary Wednesday and Thursday, taking on the Oilers and the Flames, respectively. But Dallas tonight, home, -213 favorites. The other games tonight, Vancouver is in New Jersey. And as I mentioned in talk with Mike, I mean, Vancouver has to just be kicking themselves for not winning that game on Saturday. The Rangers had almost nothing going on. 12 shots for the entire game. 5 of them went in, though. And the Canucks, despite outshooting them 40-12, end up losing in regulation. Meanwhile, Calgary's been doing some winning, and St. Louis hasn't stopped. They've won 6 in a row, as we kind of laid out a little earlier. But Vancouver needs this one tonight. They're +118. Elias Paterson, game time decision, I guess, day-to-day right now. We'll see if he can play. The Devils -139. Utah got a big win against Tampa on the weekend. They are back at home against the Detroit Red Wings, who were just on the periphery of the playoff chase after a pretty ugly few weeks. Utah's -164 tonight. Detroit is +140. And the Columbus Blue Jackets activating Eric Goodbranson and Sean Monahan. Monahan had been on the IR since January the 7th. They haven't been able to score lately. His return cannot come soon enough. They are +110 underdogs tonight. The New York Islanders are -130. And I'm actually looking quite forward to this. The TGL championship match is tonight. The Atlanta Drive with Justin Thomas, Billy Ho, and Patrick Cantlay, a -139 favorite against the New York Golf Club with Xander Schauffele, as well as Cameron Young. And I think Fleetwood is playing for them today. So I'm on Atlanta on this one. It was -132 last night. It's now -139, which brings us to some of the combos we've cooked up today. Now, this is 3-point game season right now. We had that 2-gamer on Saturday, which was Flames and Islanders to go to overtime. That hit. The other game we had was Vancouver and the Rangers, and there was no business for that game to end in regulation the way that it went. We're going to take another crack at it, and it's a big number tonight, almost 19-1. Columbus Islanders, 60-minute draw, and Devils Canucks, 60-minute draw. Points for everybody. That's boosted to +1890 in the combo cards. And as far as the partner parlay today, I'm on the Atlanta Drive. Patty's on the Utah Hockey Club. And Jake's on Columbus at +110 with the return of Monahan. So Columbus, Utah, and Atlanta in the TGL is our partner parlay today, boosted to +555. It's all there waiting for you at Coolbet. Use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus on your first deposit, up to $200. And just as we bring in Remis, Remo, some really massive odds swing in the Hart Trophy candidacy. As we talked about it last week, Connor Hellebuck was 2-1. Leon Draisaitl was, I believe, -149. Well, look at it today. Hellebuck now the favorite to win the Hart Trophy at minus 175. Nathan McKinnon is at plus 250. And Leon Draisaitl, 4-1. Amazing what an injury that's going to keep him out for a few games has done to the Hart odds, and which had him as the clear leading favorite.
Yeah, well, the odds makers saw the Jets put in not Hellebuck and they lost to Buffalo. So I'm sure it's as simple as that. Draisaitl and him and McDavid, they're not going to be playing this week. Something to watch. I did see Mike Kelly put out a tweet today that he likes, he could make an argument for Dustin Wolf to be MVP.
Yes.
I think that's more, you look at the numbers, Hellebuck far and away the best, but I think that's more about taking a team that can't score and dragging them into the playoffs. But I mean, how could anyone be more valuable than the best goalie in the NHL?
If Calgary makes the playoffs and somehow Dustin Wolf drags them in, he will get major consideration. But the Calder right now is Celebrini at minus 120, and Lane Hudson is now minus 110. And last week, I think it was minus 250 for Celebrini, and Hudson was more like 2-1. So it's essentially a pick 'em right now between those two. And yeah, Dustin Wolf, who was 8-1, is now 20-1. So if you think the Flames have a little bit of magic in them in this final stretch to get them into the playoffs, I would certainly not mind a 20-1 flyer on Dustin Wolf. But I can tell you, as other WSTers that have been on Connor Hellebuck for the Hart since November when we got him at 20-1, this is certainly a nice development. And I guess if you want a pretty good hedging option too. I mean, McKinnon was 8-1 about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And now to see Draisaitl, who's been the favorite all season long, at 4-1, interesting. But anyways, we'll hope that Helly can come through with that. But and I'll tell you what, you want to win that trophy? Win tomorrow night with a great performance against the number 1 team in the league. Would go a long ways. While obviously the Oilers are without their stars in McDavid and Draisaitl. It's all there for you. Curling World's odds are up as well. Bruce Mouat, the favorite, at plus 135. Brad Jacobs in Canada, number 2 at plus 195. And speaking of World Championships, shout out to the Homan Empire. Rachel Homan does it again, beating Switzerland in the final after beating their nemesis so far in this tournament, the Koreans, in the semis. Never a doubt, Rachel Homan and her team, the best in the world. They win the championship. And as I mentioned right off the bat, shout out to the Canadian men's national team. Awesome to see them beat the U.S. on U.S. soil, pouring salt in the wounds of Team USA after they blew it against Panama and then lost again to the Canadians yesterday. And Alphonso Davies left the game early. Jesse Marsh got kicked out of the game. No problem, though. It was Jonathan David. Who else with the winner in the second half? Canada wins 2-1. Good stuff there. Did you watch any of the Madness, Remis? How's your bracket doing?
It's funny. This year, in my Final Four, I usually don't pick all number ones because that never happens. But this year, I looked at the ratings of the teams, and I took the chalk. So I did have some upsets going forward, but my Final Four is intact. And what I've learned about the brackets is, it doesn't matter what you pick, actually, in the first round. They give you more points for getting stuff right later. So as long, if you pick the winner, you have a pretty good chance. It's more about picking the winner than getting some of the upsets right early. So I haven't done well, but I have my Final Four, and I think that's, I'm in a small pool with like 20 people, and I think that matters. So having the Final Four and having it maybe unique winner. So I'm in okay. I'm not great, but I'm not totally out of it.
I'm just looking at our pool for Winnipeg Sports Talk. I'm on Florida to win. Looks like we've got a few, like kind of 7 or 8 people on Florida. It looks like Duke is the team that has the most support with about a dozen or so. Germister, who's got Tennessee to win it all. He's in first place. Winnipeg Gordo in second right now. And I don't know who ESPN 2060-91-803 is. And another fan. Some other, I'm just looking at names.
Oh, there's Andrew Collier. He's in
yes, he's on Duke. Collier is. Who else do we have here? Running Man's in 17th.
Mike Cochran.
Mike Cochran, Winnipeg, who's in the chat as well. And I am tied with Big Uke, and we both have Florida to win it all. There's Miller Time. He's on Duke. He's in 30th. And if we move down, Royal Rules. And tough for Greg. He had St. John's. They got bounced on the weekend. I think that's the only team, although closest to me had, who's this? The Creighton Blue Jays.
Oh,
that's a ballsy pick.
There's Connor, who I'm in 36th. I picked Auburn to win. I mean, they're number one team, and seemingly no one picked them. I never pick Duke. That's my rule. Never pick them. So, you go by max score, and you can kind of see how it's going to shake out. So I guess I'm really competing with this Gary Rye. He's also got Auburn. So we'll
Auburn.
see.
Nicely done. Yin Vivian in chat making some, speaking of curling, just mentioned the Homan team. Brianne Harris, who of course has had just this horrible year where she had to miss the Scotties. She was banned for a banned substance and then got that overturned after a lengthy appeal. The problem for her is it seemed like Team Anderson sort of moved on without her. They had added a number of players, and then she was reinstated, did not play in the Scotties, and she is going to be playing third for Kate Cameron going forward. So a big ad for Kate Cameron's team also here in Manitoba. Remo, before we go, can we talk about Tiger Woods' announcement yesterday, please?
He's hurt. He's not playing in the Masters this year. What announcement could he possibly have had?
Tiger Woods took to social media yesterday to hard launch his new relationship. Now, I saw this picture and I'm like, oh, wow, who is that woman? Very attractive lady. And in typical Tiger fashion, like I think to the word salad that he used, like, when he was apologizing earlier in his life for some of the deeds that he did while he was with his ex-wife, Elin, like AI could not have written something more awkward than what Tiger had to say. So it's his picture with him and his new girl, who I believe is Laura Trump, the ex-wife of Don Jr.
Vanessa,
excuse me. Thank you. And the quote is, "Love is in the air and life is better with you by my side. We look forward to our journey through life together." This is where it gets really weird. "At this time, we would appreciate privacy for all those close to our hearts." Where does Tiger come up with this stuff?
I don't know where he comes up with this stuff, but I get why he has to do this. Tiger Woods, he's a public figure. He's been in very public relationships in the past, and you know how the paparazzi are. They're lurking in the bushes, trying to get that first picture of him and want to put in the cover of, or put it in on social media or the cover of whatever, saying, hey, we've got the exclusive of Tiger Woods' new relationship. But he's getting out ahead of it, saying, here, I'm in a relationship now. This is the picture.
Love is in the air.
You guys can have it. Leave me alone. And that is what he's doing. And I respect that. Is this worded strange? Yeah, but I mean, you and I will never understand being in the public eye like a guy like Tiger, and you've got to get ahead of it. Otherwise, these guys are disgusting. They're lurking everywhere. They're like climbing in trees to get that picture and sell it to some website, and they can put out there, here, we have the exclusive. We're announcing Tiger's new relationship, because as dumb as it is, people do care about that.
Well, I mean, now, if we're supposed to give privacy for all those close to their hearts, do we have any idea how close people are to their hearts? Is there a chart somewhere where we know that these are the people that need the privacy because they're close to the hearts of Tiger and his new girl?
I guess his kids, or I don't know, close. I don't know what that means. Or he's saying everyone who's close to our heart, leave us alone. I don't know what that means. Did he use ChatGPT to craft that? I'm not sure, but I mean, in a lot of comments of Tiger Woods, he was into the waitress scene before.
Yeah.
But you asked me,
Big Denny's guy,
how old does his new girlfriend look, Vanessa Trump? And I was like, I don't know, early.
I thought she was like
20s?
23.
Yeah, I was like 21. She's 47.
That's incredible.
Incredible. And how old is Tiger? 49. So keeping it close in age, when you're close in age, you can make those references when someone gets.
I think I sent this to you yesterday on our DM, but when I looked at this picture, and I had no idea that this was an ex of one of the Trumps, I'm like, oh my God, check out Tiger's new girlfriend. She's like 23 or something like that. And I said, well, you know what, though? With Belichick's act right now,
yeah,
if he was 25 years older than her, I mean, that wouldn't even be a yellow card compared to what Bill's doing right now with his 24, 25-year-old girlfriend. But in fact, she just looks that way. Listen, very, very beautiful woman. Good for Tiger. But this picture right here that you're showing, when I looked at this first, I kind of thought Tiger looks like a dead body. Like if someone just hugging, it's like if you took out her and put a coffin around it, you would think that was someone that was deceased.
Yeah, I see the comment from Matt Hyman in chat says the hammock pic looks like he's a wax figure. So I don't know these pose picture. Like, did they get? I don't think they hired a professional. This is probably someone just doing it on their phone. And again, I think he has to put this out there because people will be lurking in the bushes trying to get that first picture. So this is PR 101. Good for him. And we didn't touch on the Belichick yoga picture on the beach as well. I mean, if we're gonna get into sports relationship talk here at the end of the show,
WSTMZ here at the end of the program. I have to say though, Tiger, listen, best to ever do it, or I mean, him and Jack, however you want to determine that. He's also a Hall of Famer in just being awkward. And I think part of it is his superstardom so early. He's, to your point, he's lived a life that we can't even comprehend or imagine. But, I mean, going back to some of those pressers that he had back when he was having some issues to this, I mean, only Tiger Woods could hard launch a relationship in this fashion with the word salad that he did. And again, they would appreciate privacy for all of those close to their hearts. So Vanessa Trump, I guess her name is still Trump as far as I know. Tiger Woods, best going forward. And Vanessa, get him back on the mend. We do want to see him back in some tournaments next year. Maybe he just goes straight to the Champions Tour. Weekend at Tigers. I mean, that's exactly what that looks like. Fun stuff, Remo. Hey, back at it, like the Jets. Everyone sort of gets it out today, lick the wounds, and you know what? If they can beat the Washington Capitals tomorrow, the loss to Buffalo will be far in the rearview mirror. But tell you what, these are two big games at home. Really, three big games at home on the rest of this homestand. Because as we mentioned, Dallas is charging, and Dallas is playing these makeup games over the course of these next few days, 3 and 4 nights, including tonight against the Minnesota Wild. And you don't get this very often on Winnipeg Sports Talk. In fact, almost never. But let's go Wild tonight. I will officially be cheering for Minnesota in this game this evening.
Yeah, I've got my Money Puck page open here, Huss. This is my new favorite thing where you go to the game preview and it gives you the percentages. So Money Puck, it actually says this is not so important game for the Stars. If they beat the Wild in regulation, their chances to win the division only go up 3% to 17%. So, hey, every win counts. You get their brick by brick. So the Stars are trying to catch the Jets, but it will be that head-to-head game for them. That's very, very important. And, just for comparison, we had that the Vancouver-St. Louis game was basically a playoff game. What was that, Friday night in St. Louis? They're on a bit of a roll here. And I do like the idea of the Jets running the gauntlet of ghosts of playoffs past. If it were to be St. Louis, Colorado, Vegas, and then Florida in the final with Paul Maurice. That is kind of funny how that would work out. So what a story that would be as less 3 weeks away till playoffs. So this is exciting.
Yeah, you bet. So, hey, join us tomorrow, 1 p.m. We'll have the latest from the morning skate, how the lines are looking without Gabriel Vilardi in it, and Neil Pionk continuing to be on the IR week to week. We'll look forward to having you join us tomorrow, 1 p.m., the latest from the morning skate. We'll have audio from Coach Scott Arniel and a few of the players, and then dive into it, a battle and matchup of number 1 and 2 in the NHL, with Alex Ovechkin, chasing Wayne Gretzky, and the Washington Capitals coming to town tomorrow night to take on the Winnipeg Jets. Thanks again to the incredible group of Winnipeg Sports Talk sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. Thanks to all of you for hanging out with us. For those with you live on YouTube, make sure to hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already. And thanks to all the podcast listeners who are making WST a part of your day. That's going to do it for us. For Michael Remis, I'm Andrew Paterson. Enjoy your Monday evening, and we'll see you tomorrow to fire up a game day edition before the top 2 teams in the league go at it tomorrow night in downtown Winnipeg.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.